Hello, 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 and welcome to Scoutcast, brought to you by Fantasy Football Scout. The international break is coming to a close, but it's not been without its injuries and drama. But obviously, it's been nice to have a little bit of a break. As always, you're joined by me, Andy, FPL Mode, and we are also joined by the ever-lovable duo of Nacho and Hibbo. We were here for you last week doing a bit of a different stream because we wanted to keep you entertained during the 2 weeks off, but we are back now ready to talk about our teams for the upcoming week. Nacho, how's it going, my man? What a healthy green arrow you were on 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, it's a bit of a distant memory, but yeah, it's looking quite good right now going into this game week. Obviously, last week we covered a bit of the gap, going through some differential players, and I think we thought going into this week it might just be another general pod, but as we know, over the last few days there's been a lot of injury news that we're going to go through, so I'm looking forward to seeing the alternatives available to us this week.
Yeah, do you know what? It was all looking too good, wasn't it? We had quite a few international games and we were looking at things thinking, just going to be a normal week going into game week 12, but there's been some big injuries and none more so than Hibbo's rank. Hibbo, obviously you were here with us last week. And we didn't talk about it at all. We're going to have to talk about it a little bit today. But have you enjoyed your 2 weeks off?
I told you not to mention my rank.
It's like a plaster. I thought I'd pull it off now, and then I don't mention it for the rest of the stream.
Steady on. But no, it does seem like a long time since the last poll, but I think it was only Thursday last week. But look, I think Nacho said a lot's happened. Like Ireland have become the best team in international football.
True.
Troy Parrott has become the best striker in world football.
True.
And Arsenal's best defender and probably the best asset in the FPL has gone and got himself injured. So
also true.
We all have to make at least one transfer this week. So I think everybody's got a few other yellow flags. I think Enzo's got a yellow flag. Semenyo, there's a bit of doubt about him. I've been on a red arrow for what feels like about a fortnight, but look, we'll not focus on the negative stuff. It's all about the boys in green at the moment.
Yeah, exactly. I am very, very pleased for you. I'm not going to lie. That Troy Parrott, I've seen it with the Titanic music, and it is quite fun to watch. But no, fair play to you. And obviously, you know, me and Nacho get bored. We get bored of, you know, qualification, just constantly qualifying for World Cups and Euros. So it's been great fun kind of living it through you. It's like you're our single mate and we're living our single life through you at the moment. So it's been great fun. We're married, we're stable. It's been fun to live that fun life through you.
But I think you boys take it a wee bit for granted. Like you don't really get the experience, the highs and the lows, if you know what I mean.
It's we did under Steve McLaren.
Qualification comes very easy,
yes.
And then you get the tournament, and then you've got hopes of we're going to win, and then ultimately they always get dashed. But let's see. Yeah. Hopefully we get a clean draw and we make it to the World Cup. It would be nice.
We were there through Wally with the brolly, mate. Don't you worry. We've had our bad times. Thank you for all those people that are in the chat. FPL Sandman. We've got Matt. We've got one Kiandricia. Hope I didn't butcher that. Big Fish. Seb. We got lots of people in the chat. So thank you for joining us. Over 100 people in there already. And we've got a bit to talk about tonight. And before I even go on to the points, obviously, the biggest news that has come out over the international break is the injury to Gabriel. He got injured on international duty with Brazil. And initial reports at the moment, from what we've seen, are that he could be out between 1 and 2 months, which is absolutely massive considering he's probably been, apart from Haaland, but he's obviously ridiculously expensive, one of the best assets to own so far this season. So most people own him, and most people are now going to be in a position where they've got to replace him. With the value he is now, I think he's 6.6 million now, and with the value that a lot of people have tied up in him, it's going to be incredibly hard to get rid of him, but you're going to have to do it if that timescale is to be believed. So let's just have a quick look at our points. And then, to be honest, we usually go to the XGI table, but we're probably going to go straight to the CBIT and Gabriel replacement table. So we're going to be looking at our points tonight. We're going to be looking at Gabriel replacements and link that in with our CBIT tables that we normally do. We're going to be looking at XGI tables. We've got our predictions, goal predictions. We've got fixtures. I'm only doing fixtures up to game week 16 because, of course, in game week 16, we all get our free transfers topped up to 5 because of AFCON. Then we've got the com teams to see how they did. A failed bench boost, I think I'm allowed to say. And then we've also got our bus teams, a Q&A, and then a little bit of an ending at the end, which is probably the most sensible place to put an end. So let's have a look I didn't even mean that. Let's have a look at our points from last week. Now, I had a bit of a rush of blood to the head Saturday morning because I played my free hit. And I'm not going to lie, people didn't like it. People were not a fan of me playing my free hit, mainly because I still had quite a few players that I owned originally anyway. So I went with my free hit. I didn't have any Chelsea, and I genuinely thought Chelsea were going to put Wolves to the sword. And I thought, this is a fixture that I can target, that I don't want to own Chelsea after this week. I know they've got Burnley away, but then their fixtures aren't great. And I wanted to try and get triple Chelsea in where not a lot of people could maybe get them or needed to use a transfer to get them. And I thought this would be a good week to do it. So I got my triple Chelsea. I got Sells in goal for 2 points. I would have had Raya. So that's 1 point made up there. I had Gabriel and Calafiori. And I quite fancied having Calafiori, and he did almost score in the last minute as well. Cucurella was 6, and Munoz was 6. I was very, very close to going double Chelsea defence, but I would have gone Reece James, so I'm quite happy I didn't go double Chelsea defence. I had Paquetá, who got me an assist, Enzo with 3, Saka, who got me 12. I didn't feel like putting the captaincy on Saka as well as playing my free hit was a sensible move. So I did still stick with Haaland captain, got me 8 points. Mateta, and then Pedro, who got me 7 points. And then Dubravka, Sarr, King, and Mukiele on the bench. So 52 points. My original team, and I would have rolled, my original team would have got me 41. And obviously I would have had an extra free transfer. I think this was a kind of low success. I wouldn't say it was anything more than that. I think I got a nice green arrow, kind of 400k, and I got more points than the average this week, which I'm obviously happy with. So I think it was a low success. I don't know what you two think about it, because obviously with a free hit, it's really hard to judge a free hit, I think. But what do you think? Do you think this was a success? Do you think it was a little bit of a meh move?
I was surprised when you done it, because it was more a case of like I just hadn't even considered a free hit in that game week more than anything. So when you said you were doing it, I didn't really have time to kind of process whether it was a good move or not. To be honest, I like the different play. When we have so many chips available to us this season, being a bit more aggressive is quite a nice opportunity. I think it will pan out more in the next few weeks when popular free hits in game week 13 come about. And then we could possibly match it up and think, oh, maybe the opportunity was later down the line. But I'm not against it, mate. Like, being different, everyone says everyone's template. It's nice to be a bit different.
Well, do you know what? One of the other things I should say as well, I really fancy Chelsea. I didn't like having double/triple Bournemouth in my team this week. I thought it was going to be a really tough game for him. I didn't want to play Senesi. I thought Semenyo would struggle. Little did I know he'd miss a pet, and obviously that's lucky. But I didn't want Bournemouth. So the fact Bournemouth didn't do so well and Chelsea did helped a little bit. But Hibbo, any thoughts before we move on to the king of match points?
I know you had kind of talked about it in WhatsApp. You know, you had mentioned it a few times, so the seed was obviously there. But I think it was on paper, it was a decent free hit. Like, some of it didn't come to pass, but like Pedro getting a goal, Cucurella getting a clean, I think it's probably a 1.
Yeah,
based on the fact that we're not really going to be using these chips in double game weeks. I think in a single game week, half season, I think it is a 1.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, if the people that use their free hits in game week 13, they also get a kind of 20-point rise on the average, then it's kind of done about the same, I would guess. So, Nacho, talk us through your points, though. Bench boost with a certain mercurial striker on your bench.
Oh, I'll tell you what, I need to remind myself almost of this game week. So, yeah, 55 points, ended up making 2 transfers. I sold Gyökeres to Thiago and I got rid of Stack to Enzo. I just felt my squad was just kind of getting worse and worse as each game week progressed. And I was originally going to bench boost in game week 12 because my team, and we'll see it later on, actually looks quite good going into game week 12. But actually, the bench boost was just hindering me every single week, keeping so much value up in 15 players. And I didn't know who was going to actually be fit after the international break. So funny enough, it's actually worked out quite well because I just wanted to get the bench boost out of the way. So I brought in Thiago. Obviously, I thought he'd get 20 points. He only got 13, is what it is. So 13 points of Thiago basically carried my bench boost. Is it actually my bench boost? I'll let the viewers decide. But I had Raya in goal 1 point. Anderson, Gabriel, Richards, and Senesi as part of a back four. Richards, the only one returning with 8 points. Nice for him to actually be the standout, whereas we always talk about Munoz and Lacroix and Gahey. It was Richards this time. Sar, Semenyo, Fernandez, and Ndai, not much to report back. And then, of course, Haaland and Mateta. My bench boost, quote unquote, was Dubravka, Thiago, Rodon, and Enzo. Realistically, it probably would have been Enzo starting. Outside of that, who knows? But yeah, 55 points, good green arrow, bench boost success only because of Thiago. That is simply it.
Yeah, I was going to mention this, and I could see Hibbo's kind of vein in his forehead starting to pump a little bit there as well, because I'm calling bullshit. I don't think you would. I think you would play Thiago over Anderson or Senesi. Senesi away to Villa. Anderson, what was he, away to Everton? Sorry, I think you would be playing Thiago over those. Hibbo, you can do a little bit of a rant now. I've scheduled in 20 seconds for this, so give him your all.
I'm going to allow it because I really like Nacho, and he's like a big thing. He used to call himself like a colleague of mine, but I would like to think of him as a friend, and I know what's happening. Is okay.
We are friends.
I know what's happening here. He wants you to go really easy on the next screen. That's what's happening here. That is what's happening here. He's gone, I can't go too hard because I need my boys to stick up for me on the next screen. So let's bring up the next screen, shall we? Because Hibbo, 40 points. What happened?
40 points minus 4. So this was my first point hat, not just this season, but I didn't take a point hat all of last season. So the last minus 4 was the season before last. My moves were basically Gvardiol and Reinders, De Anderson and Enzo. Now, Gvardiol obviously kept the clean, which wasn't great. But I kind of felt there was logic in the hat. Like Reinders, I was looking at these percentages they start in all the kind of good places that you look, and they didn't fancy him to start. I didn't fancy playing Rodon, and long term I was thinking, look, I have to get rid of Reinders at some point. I have to rip the plaster off. It has to go. And it just wasn't positive this week. But just from front to back for the podcast, people saw Ray and Gabriel combined for 2 because they conceded twice to Sunderland. Anderson got 3, courtesy of some DEFCON, Senesi with 2. Saka with a goal, DEFCON on 12. Bruno with an assist on 5. Sar and Enzo with 3 apiece. Semenyo obviously missed the pen, which wasn't great. Then up top, Haaland with a goal, a pen missing 4 times 2. And Matera with a blank and 2. So nothing much to chat about in the bench. Look, it was a disappointing week. I toyed with Saka captaincy, but obviously didn't do it in the end. It hasn't been a great run. You know, like wild card 6 gave me a good boost, and like recent red arrows have kind of rooted the rank a wee. But similar to yourself, I probably could have played a free hit this week because I felt looking at my team, it didn't really feel great. But from the next week, it felt slightly stronger. The Man City boys, the fixtures are obviously going to pick up, so it was a consideration. I didn't do it, but look, I think we just dust ourselves down. Enzo's on now for Reinders, and it's just about moving forward in the game. And look, we're all going to sell Gabriel, I think, and that's going to be the focus of this show.
Yeah, big time. And that's what we're going on to next is the fact that Gabriel looks like he's injured, looks like he's going to be out for quite a while. And obviously over the Christmas period, that is a ridiculous amount of fixtures that he's looking to potentially miss. Before I move on to the Gabriel replacements, I just wanted to ask both of you quickly. With Gabriel out, how much does that hurt Arsenal from a defensive point of view? Obviously, they've got Mosquera that they can bring in. Their system is set up incredibly well to keep clean sheets. Nacho, do you think Gabriel out massively dents them? Or do you think it, obviously he's one of the best centre-backs in the world, got one of the best centre-back partnerships with Saliba. Do you think it massively dents them, or do you think they're going to carry on being a good defensive unit that we've seen so far?
Yeah, I think we've seen in the Champions League when they rotated at times and in certain cups that I do feel like they're just a well-oiled machine now where Arsenal can just put out a back four and they kind of operate in the same way. But as an actual individual player for Gabriel, his box presence in both areas is going to be a big miss. I think he's such an important player for them defending all of these long throws and obviously corners in the box, but also, like we know, just the main man on those Rice corners. So have they got anybody who's going to directly replace Gabriel as a threat in the box? I haven't seen it myself. I don't think Saliba's got that kind of presence naturally. And I don't know whether the replacements that will come in, I can't lie, I don't know too much the profile of Mosquera as an example. So yes, I think it will hurt them in terms of the box presence. But as a general team, I still anticipate them to get clean sheets, But Spurs and Chelsea with the next two, it's going to be quite a test. I think Spurs are good on the road. Chelsea in general are one of those teams that I would always expect them to score. So yes, I think it will hurt Arsenal in some capacity, but I still back them as a team to do well. And it's big for FPL. We needed somebody to shake it up a little bit. This Gabriel injury, touch wood, he's all okay, but it makes it interesting nonetheless.
Yeah, Hibbo, do you think, because Gabriel's been very good for DEFCON this year, surprisingly, do you think those kind of DEFCON numbers start shifting over to Saliba while he's out? Or do you think it's maybe going to go with his replacement? Do you see any kind of a difference there?
I think it's a very good point. Like, I think if we're looking at Gabriel this season, he did DEFCON on about a third a game. So like roughly, I think it's about 36%. You would think that they would have to go somewhere. Now, are they going to be Saliba? Are they going to be a different centre-back that's maybe going to be more attacking in terms of attacking the ball and winning tackles and clearing the ball and stuff like that? It's probably going to be his replacement. Who that's going to be, I think it remains to be seen, because they've got Hincapié, I think they've got Mosquera. I think they also have the option where they could play Tumber as a centre-back and play Ben White as a right-back, because Tumber, like an international duty, he plays centre-half for the Dutch national team. So that's not off the cards as well. Like, you know, so I don't think it automatically goes to Saliba, if you know what I mean. But I do think, and we're going to get into it in a wee bit more detail, some of these Arsenal defenders have got more potential than DEFCON. Like, you know, we're looking at Tumber, we're looking at Calafiore. We're going to talk about the XGA when we get to that stage of the show, but like, they have that, which is a lot more than DEFCON. Like, they do have people are talking about painting the Sistine Chapel, and I do think these are players that can do that big score, that they can do the 20-pointer and stuff like that, you know. So I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I mean, when we look at the player point projections, which are brought from the Fantasy Football Scout members area, you can, if you're a member, you can see all of those. But Hibbo's drawn them off for us and put them into a lovely looking table. You can see here over the next 6 game weeks who are the highest projected defenders. Senesi is at the top there. I keep forgetting he's 5 million now. Gabriel was obviously in second, but that will change drastically now. Timber in third. Gvardiol, Munoz, Lacroix. Lots of these DEFCON boys obviously coming up. Van Dijk is in 7th. O'Reilly, City, remembering as well, 8 Nori is going to be going to AFCON. So O'Reilly's had an absolutely incredible start to the season. Saliba, Delict, Calafiore, Murillo, Collins, Richards, and Thior at Newcastle. Now, it's worth mentioning that the only player above 25 points expected is Senesi. The others that are projected above 24 are Gvardiol, Timber, and Gabriel. And obviously, Gabriel is going to drop out of that list. But the majority of them are very, very squeezed between kind of 22 and 25 points. There's not a massive difference between all of these, but these are just projected points. So what actually happens will be very, very different. But Nacho, if we look at this table straight away, without even kind of thinking about it, if you had to replace Gabriel, who is sticking out for you as this just makes sense in terms of a free transfer, one move, get it done?
I think probably for me, if people aren't on the double Arsenal strategy and Gabriel's your only defender right now, I think Timber is the natural replacement. I just don't think going away completely from Arsenal defence is the way to go. And there's been a lot of people talk about how David Raya is not worth the money. So if you haven't already got the combination of Timber and Gabriel's your only investment, I don't think it's wise going over this period without any Arsenal coverage whatsoever. So for me, my first and foremost transfer is going to be, if Gabriel's out, you don't have Raya, you don't have Timber, stick with the Arsenal defence and don't be tempted by other teams. Firstly, I would get back on the Arsenal, and I think Timber at 6.1 million. I think most people are selling Gabriel about 6.3 million probably in terms of sale price that you mentioned. So for me, Timber is the ideal pick. I do expect him to be the starter. Now, game week 14, of course, is a midweek game. So could we see Ben White maybe get the occasional start? Possibly. But I think over this period, I'm expecting Timber to start the majority. And I think everybody's at risk at some points during midweek games. So, yeah, for me, firstly, if you haven't got any Arsenal after you sell Gabriel, get back to Arsenal and Timber. Yeah,
and, you know, great shout there in terms of, obviously, you know, you can easily replace Gabriel, he's one of the best defenders in the league and one of the best defenders in the league for another Arsenal player. But the player I'm seeing being touted as the replacement more than anybody else is a player who plays for a team that is at one of the leakiest defences in the league so far this season, Hibbo, which is, Van Dijk. He's 7th on this one. He's been an absolute beast for DEFCON. The biggest thing you can say about Liverpool is the fact that their fixtures are just ridiculous moving forward. Do you think you can go to Van Dijk? I mean, he is... If you had to look at that back line, he's the only one you can rely on. So is that why everybody's kind of clamouring for him a little bit at the moment?
I think it's a combination of things. And he's very much on socials become the default pick, and I don't think he's a bad option, because if we look at these next fixtures for Van Dijk, like Forest,
Yes,
West
I'll just
Ham,
bring them up. Yeah,
Sunderland, Leeds, Brighton, it's a fixture run I can definitely get behind. Now, if we're looking at Van Dijk compared to, say, Tumber or Calafiore, I think Tumber, in the games he's played so far, 11 games, he's got 2.78 XGI, which is huge for a defender. So he's top of the shop, just ahead of Munoz, and Calafiore's back in third with 2.46. So these are players that potentially have that kind of ceiling from an assist or a goal scoring point of view. Whereas Van Dijk's numbers in terms of goal threat and assist potential are much lower. But what he does have is DEFCON. I think we talked about it in the IB pod. He's hitting DEFCON about 55% of games. And I think this is what it's about. Can you pick a player that can A, get DEFCON, B, combine it with clean sheets, and also have that bit of potential from set pieces? We saw it against Man City. He scored. It was obviously ruled out for offside, but he does have that potential, and he's facing a couple of sides, I think, in Nottingham Forest, West Ham, Sunderland, Leeds. These are sides that are potentially going to be weak from set pieces. Maybe not Sunderland because of Ballard, but he's a pick that I think I can get behind, and I think we talked about him during the week as a kind of slightly outside of the box pick. He's not hugely owned in very good sides. I think his ownership is much less than 20% in top 10k teams. So ahead of this fixture run, if you think you're going to get the DEFCON, you think you're going to get the clean sheets, I think he's a solid pick.
It's a weird one, isn't it? Because of obviously the form they're showing us so far. And I think if we ever look at the CBIT table as well, we've got Richards and Gay here at the top there. Konate's in third. And Nacho, would you say there was any argument to be said for the fact that you could go Konate over Van Dijk? Obviously he's only 0.5 cheaper now, to be fair, but he's hitting his DEFCON 67% of the time. Van Dijk's only hit it 50% of the time in the last 6 game weeks. He's cheaper. He's obviously in that Liverpool backline already anyway. Do you think there's any argument to go for either or do you think you just pick Van Dijk because he's the safest?
Well, we say Van Dijk's the safest, and he always will be the safest. But when we look at Konate, he started every league game. I'm just looking at it now. So started every league game for Liverpool. So yes, Van Dijk is the safest, but we aren't really blessed this season, when Liverpool aren't, with a plethora of centre-backs like Arsenal are, for example. So who really replaces Konate in that team? Gomez? But I can't see that being a long-term replacement. It might be for one game, or if Konate does sustain an injury. But it comes back to the whole thing, like the Reece James scenario, where when do we start to trust a player when they have historical problems with injuries? And I think Konate's shown this season that he can start every game. Yes, he is playing pretty poorly, I would say, at times to Liverpool. He's been a bit suspect, in particular in that Man City game. But do Liverpool have the options to just take him out of the team for a while? I personally don't think so. So, yeah, I think Van Dijk's a very easy player to go to, because anybody going from Gabriel can afford Van Dijk. But I would also say maybe try a combination if you're making multiple transfers. And does Konate actually open up the door? Because 0.5 million might be the difference between an okay player and actually quite a decent player if you're doing a transfer combination. So Van Dijk's still the standout, but I would look at Konate if you're doing a transfer combination.
Yeah, I mean, if you want to go a little bit different and you don't want a Van Dijk or Konate, I've mentioned him already. He's 8th on the list in terms of projected scores over the next 6 game weeks, Hibbo. Talk to me about O'Reilly, because O'Reilly has been great so far this season. Obviously, Aït-Nouri was out, so that gave him a bit of a platform to perform and to get more appearances. Aït-Nouri is off to AFCON in 5 weeks' time. O'Reilly obviously will cement his position even more over that time, you would have thought. Do you think there's any case for going from, he's only 5 million and he is getting a few assists? Do you think you would be tempted at all, or do you reckon that's let other people take that risk and you go with someone a bit safer?
O'Reilly's a strange one because he's the kind of player I could get behind very short term for like a free hit.
Yeah.
Do you know, like if we had a very good fixture for Man City and a reasonable steer that he was going to start, I think he's like you could potentially pick him and have a decent sub. I think long term when we're looking at him for the price, like he's 5 million, you're looking at different options here in this table, like Senesi. We've got people like Richards, you know, Gahey's maybe about 5.1. Like there's absolutely no doubt about their minutes. Do you know? And I think when you're picking defenders at the moment this season with DEFCON such a factor, it feels a wee bit silly to me to go for defenders who are potentially a minutes risk, which essentially he is. Now, Aitner-Ray's obviously been injured. He's going to go to AFCON, but there is that period between now and AFCON where I'm not entirely sure on the status of Aitner-Ray's injury. Could he potentially come back and take some minutes off O'Reilly? It's not beyond the realms of possibility. Do you know, like Gavardio can also play left back. Somebody else can come on at centre back. So while he's on the team now and he's obviously doing well enough to get the call up for England, on a personal level, FPL wise, I don't think I would touch him because he just feels like a transfer wouldn't happen. He feels like you're going to buy him, and at some point in about 5 or 6 weeks, you're going to say, I have to sell this guy, he's not reliable. And there's other defenders that have absolutely zero risk in terms of their minutes that you won't have to feel that way about. So for me, no.
Yeah, fair. And I can't talk about a City defender without talking about a United defender, because when you look at the fixtures for Manchester United, they are second. They've got Everton at home, West Ham at home, Bournemouth at home. They've got Wolves away. They've got some really nice fixtures in the next 5, Nacho. So I do have to talk about De Ligt just a little bit. He's 10th on this list. 10th highest projected scorer for defenders over the next 6 game weeks. For CBIT, he isn't showing up in the top 15 for CBIT, but he hasn't been too bad with getting it so far this season. Any kind of love for De Ligt, or obviously are we still looking at Man United and thinking probably not?
Well, defensive contributions wise, it looks like he's averaging about 8.55 per 90. So he's hit it 4 times, it looks like, I believe. 4 times maybe. So yeah, he's hovering around it. A couple of times he's hit the 9 as well. So have I seen enough right now from Man United defensively? Maybe you're the better man to answer that, mate, in terms of what you've seen from an eye test perspective. I would say they've played some tough games over the last few weeks. Liverpool, Brighton, Forest under a new manager, and obviously Spurs. So I think the run coming up for Man United is good. Everton, Palace, West Ham, Wolves, Bournemouth. But again, when you actually read them out loud, Palace, really tough place. West Ham, maybe, obviously, with their situation right now, could be a difficult game to play. And then Wolves under new management could be a tricky game as well. So I like the fixtures, but I think very quickly before you know it, once that West Ham game's gone, Bournemouth, Villa, Newcastle, I just think when you've got the money available, I think Liverpool is more of a temptation than that of Man United.
Yeah, fair. Hibbo, before we move off this table then, we've obviously been talking this whole time about Gabriel and replacements for him. Give me 2 players that you would happily replace Gabriel for in your team.
Van Dijk and Timber.
Yeah. Nacho, you're going to do the same, aren't you? Give me 2 names that you would happily replace Gabriel for.
Van Dijk. Oh, hey, I said Timber earlier, Hibbo, so you took that from me. It would be those 2, though. It would be those 2, unfortunately.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I'm being boring. I'm trying to find a differential for people, but I just don't want to really go for one just for the sake of saying one, really.
Yeah. No, that's
Can
fair.
I just highlight just a very quick point? Like, I know people have talked to death about David Raya as a pick and 6-point ceiling and yeah. Here's the thing. He doesn't get injured. Do you know? So
don't say that.
No, but he doesn't get. Well, he's not going to go and pull his groin the same way as like Gabriel has, and some kind of soft muscle injury. So like, while people talk Raya under the ground as an option, this is why he's a good pick.
Have you got a Raya voodoo doll under the table there?
What's going on here?
Yeah.
No. Stop saying different injuries.
Oh, God. Right, let's have a look at the XGI table then over the last 6 game weeks. It is still Mateta's table, but he is slowly dropping down, and it is Haaland catching him up. Mateta has 5.66 XGI over the last 6 game weeks. Haaland in second with 5.22. They're the only 2 above 5.0, and they're the only 2 above 20 shots over the last 6 game weeks. Thiago is in third now, 4.37 and 18 shots so far. Saka is in fourth, 4.03, 14 shots. Tell you what, it was a good captaincy shout last week. Enzo Fernandez is in fifth. Gakpo in
dirty
sixth.
dog.
And Dye in seventh. Salah, Voltemada, Neto, interestingly, in 10th, with Pedro and Gyökeres, with Bruno Fernandes, Welbeck, and Mbumo rounding off the top 15. Nacho, I've just said about Thiago there. You own Thiago. A lot of us moved down our third striker spot to a 4.5. Someone like Krupi, for instance, who that's what I did. Do you think there is going to be a point moving forward where either people have only Haaland and Thiago, or people will start clamouring for their third striker to be Thiago? Because I think I said 4 or 5 weeks ago, we all seem to be ignoring him, and he's done so well, and he's so cheap. It's only 6.3 million. Should he be higher owned? But it's 6 goals so far this season. There's not many that can beat that.
Yeah, if Thiago's kind of got that, I don't know, that Raul Jimenez kind of vibe, really, where we've always had these sort of players at these price points, haven't we? Where, you know, they're cheap enough. You can fill them in your teams. You know they're probably going to get 10 goals across the course of the season. They're the talisman in their respective teams, but they're not really that glamorous. So do I think right now, sitting here as a Thiago and other managers should go there? Still probably not, because Brighton away this week, Burnley at home in game week 13. Big reason why I brought him in was because I'm on the fence whether to free hit in game week 13 or not. So it kind of gives me the opportunity. If I don't free hit in 13, you got the Burnley game. But then after that, Arsenal away, Spurs away, you get the Leeds game in game week 16. But no, I know Thiago's doing well, but would I be making a forward transfer with the other situations that we have on our team right now? Not really. I don't think there's enough right now with Thiago to be like, oh, we got to get him into our teams desperately. But could I see a future where the forwards continue to a little bit disappoint and we go Haaland, Thiago in a dead spot? I could see that situation arising, but just look at Mateta right now at the top of the tree, and other players who've been quite impressive in the shape of Voltemada, and also I think there's always going to be competition around Thiago's price point that makes him still quite lowly owned.
It's going to be really interesting. I'm waiting for that week when the Bournemouth game drops off for Mateta. So obviously this table involves that game where Mateta had over 3 XG or whatever it was, wasn't it, against Bournemouth. As soon as that drops off, he's going to be down in that kind of 13, 14, 15 mark, isn't he? And it's going to be really interesting to watch what happens as soon as that game drops off. But Hibbo, I'm sorry, I've got to bring it up because I said I wasn't that keen on a Saka captaincy last week. And obviously he did okay, got 12 points, would have been good as a captain. He's killing it in terms of XA and XG over the last 6 game weeks. He's the only one here who's got almost 2 XG and 2 XA in the last 6 game weeks. We were talking massively 2 weeks ago saying things will change at some point. Players like Declan Rice, Caicedo, all they slot, it will be Saka's time to shine at some point. Was this the turning point again? Is this the point where everybody, Nacho doesn't even have him? Is this the point now where people are going to start thinking, I need to get Saka back in my team?
Well, I think it's a strange season because the Gabriel injury is obviously going to suppress that. Because people are going to make an Arsenal change and they're going to do Gabriel to maybe Timber. The priority move this week for many people isn't going to be to buy Saka, is what I mean. And then I think if you look at their fixtures, I think they've got Spurs this week at home, which is from an attacking point of view pretty good. I think they've got Chelsea and Villa in the next 4.
Yeah, Brentford at home as well.
That's like they're hard teams to play against. Brentford at home's obviously a very good fixture, but I think with Saka, we're starting to see his fitness has come. He's getting back on the team. He's playing his minutes, and he's just looking like a world beater. And I think we're also seeing him at a strange level in FPL, where his ownership is kind of flying under the radar. He must be in about less than 40% of teams, which is for a player of Saka's potential and what he can hit in terms of big scores. It's still a huge differential, and I think what I look for when I'm looking at these tables is XA and XG is one thing, but he's starting to find his rhythm, 14 shots, 12 key passes, and 4 big chances created. That's quite a lot. So there's multiple avenues to points here. He can create a chance, he can take a set piece, he can score a goal himself. And I think we're going to see maybe Saka kicking on a bit now, start to do those big scores. And the whole conversation about, do you play a back 3 Arsenal, do you play Declan Rice, thing of the past, back Saka.
Do you know what the big thing was, though, in that game was that they conceded. Like, Arsenal conceded and went, oh God, we got to score now. And they haven't done that pretty much all season, have they? They haven't had that impetus on their attack where it was like, we've got to go and score, or we've got to score more than one. And obviously, it was the most flustered I've seen them all year. It was apart from when they lost 1-0 to us, it's the most flustered I've seen them all year. And it was interesting, obviously, watching them concede. And with Gabriel out, if there is a chance that they just take that minor bit of a dip and start conceding the odd goal, I think it could be great for Saka. I think it could be really good that they've obviously got to have that motivation to attack, whereas I don't really think their main thing this season has been to do that. So it's going to be interesting to see. But Saka, it was good to see him back in the goals, and obviously his XA and XG are looking very, very healthy moving forward. So looking at the predictions for this week then, this is from 11ify, so thank you very much for letting us use your stuff again, 11ify. It is Arsenal and Liverpool playing at home that have the biggest chance of a win. Arsenal at 70% and Liverpool also at 70%. Arsenal are projected 2.19 goals, Liverpool 2.32. Arsenal clean sheet percentage is 46%, which would be interesting to see if that goes down slightly with Gabriel confirmed out. We also don't know whether Calafiori, by the way, is going to be fit to play. He was injured, and Timber went off injured, but it looks like it's probably going to be fine for Timber. 42% for Liverpool there. Nacho, looking at those two, Arsenal and Liverpool, 70%. People are so worried about bringing in Liverpool players. When you look at the fixtures and you look at the stats like this, which are brought from bookmakers' odds, this is probably the best thing you've got in terms of reliability. Do we have to ignore what's happened already with Liverpool and just look at the fixtures, or do you kind of want to have a bit of an even shout in terms of you've got to look at the form and the fixtures? How do you kind of look at that when you have to decide something like this?
Yeah, I think Liverpool's a really difficult one right now because, of course, they have been so indifferent in these opening 11 game weeks. And I think the problem right now with Liverpool is that we still don't know exactly what that best 11 is going to be. So from an FPL perspective, when we really break it down, it's so hard right now for any of us to sit here and say it's time to move to Mo Salah, because that either means we put all our budget towards Haaland and Salah, or we sell Haaland. And I just don't see any viable reason to do that. You are really taking a punt that Mo Salah comes off the back of the international break and suddenly he's fantastic. So really it comes down to who's actually available. There's a lot of talk about Szoboszlai being an option, but I just don't really think that is one that is a priority for managers right now. So even though the fixtures are great for Liverpool, I think it's why it makes Van Dijk, or if you want to go Konate, such an interesting pick, because it gets you a piece of the fixtures while we don't know who the attacker is to own, because we still don't know once Isak's back in. Does that mean Ekitike off the left? Does that mean Gakpo comes off the team? Does Wirtz suddenly do well off the back of his performance for Germany? I think the indifferent way of Liverpool right now is making it so hard to invest in their attackers, and I think that will continue until maybe game week 14, where we get 2 more game weeks and maybe a settled Liverpool team, but I just don't see it happening.
Yeah, it's a real tough one, isn't it, Hibbo, in terms of the fixtures are obviously there. We've spoken about Van Dijk already. 70% chance of a win this week, 2.32 goals, which is the most in the league. It's mad to think that we're going into this 5-game stretch thinking that it might be Van Dijk we own, and that's only because of a Gabriel injury.
Like we talked about during this during the AB pod, where like you're looking at this week in paper and Salah's probably the optimal captain. You're looking at the conversation we had last week about Haaland, and like I think everybody's kind of programmed their brain in such a way to say we can't tick that on for captaincy anymore. Whereas I do think we can, and I think going away to Newcastle is not exactly the easiest game in the world. And I do think there's a couple of players here. Salah at home to Forest, and Saka again at home to Spurs. Like if we're looking at the goal projections, 2.19 for Arsenal, 2.32 for Liverpool. I think brave managers that get behind that could be rewarded. But I do agree with Nacho's points. It's hard to see at this point in time. I do like Salah as an option, but like how do you effectively get there? Nobody's going to sell Haaland. So like you're effectively saying, well, do I sell Bruno and Saka to get Salah and a really cheap midfielder and then go for a 4-4-2? It could work in a very short term, but there's so many variables in this, and the fact that how many players do you have going to AFCON? Like if you own Sarr, if you own Ndiaye, if you're adding Salah to the
Mbeumo.
mix on top of that, and Mbeumo, you're leaving yourself a real problem in game week 16, 17. And people will say, oh, but we get the free transfers. The best managers won't use those transfers that week. They'll be carrying them forward. So I think it's a watching brief for now, but I think with Liverpool, an interesting thing in the weeks ahead could they be the week that you attack with a free hit? You know, like the week they play Sunderland or Leeds. Is that the week that you say, well, look, I'm going to free hit, I'm going to follow my team with 3 Liverpool players because nobody owns them. And this is the week they potentially go very big. Do you go Saka? Do you go Wirtz? Do you go somebody else? And hope that a hit. And maybe that's the potential thing with Liverpool over this stretch, that you don't overcommit to yourself, and the fact that you're going to have to start breaking that down when AFCON comes around and you can just pile in for 1 week. But this wouldn't be the 1 week for me. I wouldn't target Forest.
Yeah, it's looking at these probabilities and possibilities. It's really interesting that City are so low. So City are only 27% chance of a clean sheet. They're playing against Newcastle away. Only 46% chance of a win and only 1.66 goals projected. And when we look at the actual players' simulated goals and assists, it's Gyökeres at the top, although I don't think we've had an update on him, whether he's going to be ready after the international break. I know we've had one on Havertz to say he's definitely not going to be. Salah is in second, then Saka, then Isak, and then Haaland. Now, don't get me wrong, there's not a lot between Salah and Haaland. So Salah's 0.69 projected XGI. Then we got Saka at 0.66, Isak 0.64, and Haaland at 0.63. And then a bit of a drop after those, which have Eze, Pedro, Mateta, Semenyo, Ekitike. Is this a week, Hibbo, to go against Haaland? We have to say this every week. Newcastle away, probably one of the hardest places to go in terms of, scoring, keeping clean sheets, whatever you want to say. Is this the week to do it? And if it is, are you going to finally put your money where your mouth is and captain Saka?
What I will say about this table is great table from 11ify. I would expect it to change slightly. So if Gyökeres isn't looking like he's going to feature, he's probably going to drop out of contention, and Saka's probably going to boost up a bit. So you're looking this week on paper that Salah and Saka are probably on paper the best options. Now, like you would say, goal involvement wise, 0.69, 0.66, and 0.63. There's not a lot to separate them, but 2 of them are muds. Do you know? Yeah. So there is that potential that you're getting a point for the clean sheet, an extra point for the goal. Saka like death goal in his last match. So that's not beyond the realms of possibility too. Is this the week? If I own Salah, I think I would definitely do it this week. Mm-hmm. I think he's clear, much clearer than anybody else. I think he's far clear of Haaland. I think he's clear of Saka. I think Saka and Haaland's about level, and it really boils down to what's your risk appetite? Do you know, like, there's a couple of ways to look at this. Like, say in my position, 1.2 million, not great. Do I take a chance to get back on the game? And by doing that, do I potentially set my rank on fire? Because that's the risk that you're facing. Because, like, Haaland's going to be like, what? Let's guess, 150, 160% EO. Saka's going to be low. He's going to be about 30, 40%. There's a potential that you could take it on. But I think when you look at Arsenal, they're a team, because models rate them, because the bookies rate them, they're always fancied to score goals. But what I will say is, as Spurs at home, like a really easy game. Don't know. Like Thomas Frank, he's a decent manager. He has them organised. I think it's a bit different playing against this Spurs team than, say, playing against Postecoglou Spurs. Like if Arsenal were playing against them boys, I would fancy them to score 3 and 4 goals. But playing against this team, I don't know. I don't really know what way it's going to go. And I think people will just kind of defer to the comfort blanket and say, I'll go for Haaland. But I do think it's a week that people could take a risk. Yes.
It's interesting. I think there's quite a few things working against Arsenal this week. I think obviously the Gabriel injury, the fact that they have just come off of quite a rattling, game against Sunderland as well. The fact that Spurs are incredibly good away from home. They are not good at home, but they are very, very good away from home for some reason. I don't think this is going to be as easy as we think, and I think they're probably closer to Man City in terms of will they get a result this week than people are saying. I do obviously expect an Arsenal win more than a City win, but I think it is closer than we think. I mean, Nacho, the team we haven't mentioned in terms of captaincy this week is Crystal Palace. Crystal Palace have a Wolves team that are just dreadful at the moment. Obviously, they've got a new manager now, but they are at 50% in terms of expected to win, 1.65 goals. Any kind of love for a Mateta captaincy, potentially?
Whew. It's really difficult because if this was the Wolves of game week 11, then I think we would be very tempted. But you always get that feeling, first game at home for the new manager against Crystal Palace. It just feels like one of those games where would I be surprised if they were to actually turn up for the manager? Possibly. Now, of course, we're all making our guesses here. Wolves should get beat by Palace. The bookies have got that. We all probably assume it ourselves. But there is something about a new manager bounce in these certain situations. I think Wolves are pretty rubbish, though. Would I put Mateta over Haaland right now? I should, because Newcastle are a much better team than that of Wolves. But I'm still going to be putting the captaincy on Erling Haaland. And I still think a lot of managers in that decision are still going to struggle to put it on Mateta. If anyone is in the chat right now, is putting it on Mateta, please let me know, because I think when that deadline gets here, I think Haaland will be the default captain.
Yeah, it's worth mentioning as well that Haaland would have easily matched or beaten Saka last week if it weren't for that missed penalty, and obviously that's a big factor in that as well. Let's have a look at some community teams, because I think this might be one of the first times we're looking at the community teams and we're kind of saying, yeah, quite happy with how they did, but it was not a great week. Talk us through it, Nacho.
Yeah, I mean, things are looking okay this season. We've got an opportunity to actually not do a forfeit. I don't know whether it's one of us have to beat them for all of us not to do a forfeit or not.
No,
I don't think it is. Is that
it's
okay?
each.
That's it. If you beat them, we don't sing.
Yeah.
So you two will do a forfeit this year. Okay?
It's each.
So,
yeah.
No.
Yeah. So general update. Big Dog's top, 680 points total. And then we got
Big Dog. That took me a while to realise what you were talking about then. Big Dog.
OG Com Team sitting pretty at second, 5 points behind. Just to give you a rundown on them, 56 points, outscored my bench boost by 1, and they activated their bench boost themselves. Ended up bringing in Twanzebe for Achiampong, which is quite a rogue move, but their bench boost, I would say, is not as successful as mine. They managed to only score, let me do some quick maths a minute, is that 10 points on the bench? Less than my Thiago.
It's a legit bench boost, though, so they get 5 extra points.
We'll see about that. We'll see. But yeah, all in all, okay week. They've got the same issues as everybody. Gabriel, Semenyo flagged. Those wondering about Enzo, I think we all are assuming he will be available for this week. Team looks pretty strong for them. In terms of the new com team, well, not as good. 47 points for them. Again, Gabriel and Semenyo injured. No transfers, no chips made. So they probably are going to be looking not as much flexibility in Mark Gui. They're committed to the 2 up top. I think it's looking okay for us this season. I'm feeling very good about this in the early days. We have opportunities.
I mean, 47 points is low, isn't it? Like, that is low for a point score from last week. So we're fine. We're fine.
I don't want to
47 is. You can't get much lower, I don't think. So I think we're okay, aren't we? Hibbo, anything to add?
I haven't seen lower. No.
No, nothing to add. Good. Let's have a look at some bus teams then.
He's dead.
He's gone. Let's have a look at some bus teams. So this is my bus team. I'm not going to lie. I feel so poor at the moment. After having 3 free transfers, 4 free transfers, I've got 0 in the bank, exactly 0. And I've got 1 free transfer. And obviously I've just used my free hit, so I didn't gain an extra transfer there. So I've got Raya in goal. I've still got Gabriel, Mukiele, Munoz and Senesi at the back. Saka, Sarr, Semenyo and Bruno Fernandes in the middle with Haaland and Mateta up top. And then I've got Xhaka, Krupi Jr. and Van der Ven on the bench with Dubravka as well. So I'll be getting rid of Gabriel. It's who I get rid of Gabriel for. Van Dijk is obviously top of the list at the moment. I don't fancy going to another Arsenal defender at the moment. I think with their 2 fixtures coming up, I'm happy to wait and see what happens. And Van Dijk is top of the list at the moment. I was going to be doing Van der Ven to Anderson and then playing Anderson, but to be honest, I don't think I can really do that now with Gabriel sat there. So it's too much money to have a player that's just going to sit there for ages. So Gabriel to Van Dijk looks most likely. I could easily... the thing I do quite like is at least I've got Xhaka on the bench that can come in for Semenyo if he doesn't play, for instance, or if I've got any issues. Krupi Jr., I still don't think is gone from that Bournemouth team now. I know Evan Nilsson started the last game, but I do think he's going to share minutes with Krupi Jr. with Evan Nilsson quite a bit now, and it's quite a nice fixture for him, West Ham at home. So I think I'll probably put him either first on the bench or second. Obviously, Shaq is there for the security, and then Van der Ven's just sat there too. So yeah, I'm most likely going to be doing Gabriel to Van Dijk, and I want to use a transfer each week before 16 at the moment. So yeah, that's most likely what I'm going to do. I feel like it's a pretty strong team. It's just a shame about the yellow flags, but they're yellow flags that everybody has, so I don't feel too bad about them. Nacho, onto your team. You've got more yellow flags.
Yeah, more yellow flags right now. So 2 free transfers, 1.5 million in the bank. Obviously bench boost last week, so the chips I've got left is a free hit and a triple captain. Eyes on a game week 13 free hit, but as we mentioned, Van Dijk right now being top of the Gabriel replacements, it makes you think a game week 13 free hit with Thiago already in the team might not be as tempting, but we'll see when we get there. So I'll just read out my team currently. I've got Raya between the sticks, Gabriel, Anderson as Senesi as a back 3, and it's worth noting I've got Richards away against Wolves and Rodon at home against Villa. So if we had the news, I know we haven't had it, but Gabriel was only out for a game or two. I was going to keep him with the free hit in game week 13 and just come back to him in game week 14. That plan's out the window now. So I actually quite like my defence, but I probably will be looking to sell Gabriel. I like the idea of Timber, but like we said, I've already got my Arsenal coverage. I feel like it might be a good opportunity to move towards Van Dijk. I just think he's the most like-for-like replacement of Gabriel, especially if Liverpool do turn a corner, defensive contributions like we discussed. Midfield 4, Sarr, Enzo, Fernandez and Semenyo. We'll monitor the Semenyo situation because we don't really know what it is right now. I will probably keep him regardless because I have got Ndai on my bench as a first sub. And then a front three of Thiago, Haaland and Mateta. Yeah, it's going to be Gabriel. I'm going to keep my other transfer for game week 13 and then reassess whether I want a free hit or not. Gabriel to Van Dijk right now, the planned move.
Obviously, people were saying that Enzo would be fine after the last international break and he missed a game, didn't he? Do you see that happening again or do you think he's going to be absolutely fine?
Yeah, I think the fact he didn't travel at all, and I think it sounded like it was more of a case of just like making sure that he had a chance to fully rest. So I think he's been playing actually with a bit of a knock, and he's been playing really well. Really important, instrumental in that Chelsea team, so I think he'd be okay.
Yeah. By the way, before we move on to Hibbo's team, chuck us in your questions now, and then we'll answer as many as we can before we get on to it. We've got just under 500 people at the moment, so chuck them in. And then Hibbo, it gives you a chance to chuck in your questions as well. Hibbo, chuck us... Hibbo, talk us through your team. Still playing the 3-5-2, the only one with 5 in the middle at the moment.
Still playing the 3-5-2. So 1 free transfer and 0.1 million in the bank, but I think, like everybody, thoughts are going to revolve around the players that could potentially miss out. Now, we've talked about the Gabriel news at length, and it's obviously looking serious because it was reported in The Athletic, and all good kind of journalists have come out with it. So there's talk about like a month, potentially even 2 months, and at this time of the season, for me, that just feels like a hard sell. Enzo and Semenyo were flagged. Enzo feels like a fake flag. I agree with Nacho on that. He's had a rest over the international break, and I think in the last game, Argentina went with a more youthful looking lineup, so I think it was kind of planned that he wasn't going to join. Semenyo was subbed off in the last game around 55 in the international break, but some sites reported personal reasons for withdrawing, and there's been pictures on it. This is going to sound really weird. There's been pictures on his girlfriend's Instagram that he proposed to her. So for some reason, people in the fantasy community can't. They're putting 2 and 2 together and deciding that if he got down on one knee and proposed to his girlfriend, they can't be injured. I don't really know if that's the case, but anyway. Back to front for the podcast, people. I've got Raya and Gabriel at the moment. Gabriel's obviously going to change. Anderson at home to Sunderland. Senesi and Semenyo were at home to West Ham, which looks like a good fixture. Enzo at Burnley. Bruno has Everton. Saka Spurs. Sarr and Matera have Wolves. And Haaland's a bus team captain at the moment away to Newcastle. overall, pretty happy with the team. I think the fixture wise, it looks pretty strong. And I think from Gabriel, and it's going to be the kind of popular pick, I'm looking at potentially going Gabriel, Dealer, Van Dijk, although Timber, Munoz and Calafiore are potential options as well. So how I'll play this is just one change, and I'll use my bench to potentially deal with the other players that are flagged. And I think the only point for me is, again, I do think there's a genuine conversation around captaincy this week. Like, Salah's good, I don't have him. Saka's good at home to Spurs, but I think, again, interesting week for people that want to have a go.
I think this feels like a week to go against Haaland. I'm going to be really tempted this week. I really am. I just look at it and think Newcastle away is one of those fixtures where if you look at it, you think this could be one of those weeks I go against it. And I know we said last week that we weren't going to do it in the end, but obviously Hibbo was talking about Saka. It's just whether Haaland's going to do it 2 weeks in a row, but I do think this could be one of those weeks. Let's have a look at the questions we've got in then, because every time I go onto one of those screens, it moves my head. Because we've got a few questions in the chat. So Indy, my man, says, I have no Palace defensive coverage. Is Munoz a good option to replace Gabriel, or do you feel Virgil van Dijk is clear? Now, Hibbo touched on it a little bit there, but I'm going to go to you for this one, Nacho, to hear your points on it. If you don't have any Palace at the back, and obviously you've got Gabriel, would you be moving to Van Dijk or Munoz, or one of the other Palace defenders who are extremely good for DEFCON?
I do like Munoz, definitely. It's just like a fun pick. I think we all know that Richards offers really good value, and at any point, it could be an 8-pointer for Richards, 6-pointer for Munoz. He obviously has the real big ceiling, Munoz. I like it. I actually haven't considered Munoz myself personally because I already own Richards, and I think he's a really fun pick. And I think the fixtures are really solid for Palace long term. Of course, they got European football they have to contend with, and of course the EFL Cup. But yeah, I would put Munoz right up there alongside Van Dijk. It's just because all of us here pretty much got Palace defenders. We're not really considering Munoz, apart from Hibbo, I believe.
Heisenberg says, is it worth going from Saka to Salah for a -4? What do you think, Hibbo?
Definitely not. I wouldn't do it for -4, but I do think that there's the potential for people that have a reasonable stack of AFTs. If people have, like, say, 3 or more AFTs, given the fact that we're getting a top up in 16 anyway, I wouldn't be against it, but I wouldn't do it for -4. Yeah. No.
YGO Wales says, does Caicedo miss his first game back like last international break if he plays tonight, Nacho?
Ooh, it's a good point, actually, just with the travelling that they do have. Would that be a case for Caicedo? I mean, with the Lavia injury, there aren't too many replacements in that Chelsea team apart from Andre Santos that can do a similar job. I would expect if Caicedo's back, he just won't train and he'll come straight into that Chelsea team. I think he's that important under Maresca right now. So yeah, I expect him to play.
Greg Can says, on free hit 12, do I go Mbumo and Thiago or Cunha and Semenyo, Hibbo? Who do you prefer out of Mbumo, Thiago, or Cunha and Semenyo? I think that's quite easy, personally.
Yeah.
Mbumo or Thiago?
No, Mbumo and Thiago, or Cunha and Semenyo.
I'd probably go Cunha and Semenyo.
Oh, what?
Ooh.
That is the complete opposite of what I thought you were going to say.
Bournemouth do have West Ham, though.
They do have West Ham, and that's why I would do it. Like, I think Brentford away to Brighton's a tougher fixture, to be honest. And I think Semenyo, look, I think the narrative would be completely different around Semenyo if he scored the pen. Do you know what I mean? You know, he's had a wee run of kind of cooler games, but if he strikes a pen home, people just say, oh, he's a great asset. Now he's got pens and blah, blah, blah.
Fair. Okay. I was just surprised. I thought it was quite an easy pick, personally. But then I suppose on a free hit, you never know as well, do you? Lovely. Right. Thank you so much for all the people in the chat. Like I said, we almost got up to 500 people watching it, which was fantastic, considering sounds like Scotland got a last-minute winner, which is an absolutely massive. Look, just because your team's not the only team to score a last-minute 3-2 winner this week, all right? Just calm it down, Hibbo. But thank you so much for everybody that's joined us this evening. Thank you for all those people that are in the chat. Thank you for all those people that put questions in, and all those people that watch after and watch on the pod and all that kind of stuff, because we love all of you, so thank you very much. Hibbo, thank you so much for joining us this evening, my man. Hopefully it raised your spirits a little bit. I tried to take it easy on you this evening, but I hope it's a little bit, but I hope it made you feel a little bit better anyway.
You did. You raised me up. Like Nacho sung that song for us in pre-season.
Exactly.
You raised me up. But no, I feel lifted, and I'm hoping to kind of finally get a green arrow, break me duck, as they say, get myself back in the top mill. Then I'm going to free hit and I'm going to overtake you. So.
Oh, there it is. Nacho, hope you enjoyed yourself this evening. Obviously, we're hoping for another green arrow.
Yep. I feel like it should just be a absolute kind of like, you just have to have a green arrow to be on the show, really. So
makes sense.
Like I say,
makes sense.
I'm only happy when we have 3 green arrows, and I think we're all 3 going to get them next week. So
I'm
look forward to it next week.
I might ask Yelena obviously does all the graphics for us. I might ask her to put like a green arrow and red arrow counter underneath our ranks to let us know how many we've collected this year. That might be quite nice. I think we'll enjoy that. Right. Just thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. We'll be seeing you again next week. And we will wish you luck this weekend and hope your arrows are green, especially Hibbo. Cheers. Bye.